Welcome to another episode of Leadership is Female with Emily and Paige. And today we are talking about an interesting word when applied to business, hope, hopefulness, and how hope and action-oriented can cross-intersect to take you and your business to the next level. So we talked about Allison Barber, I think, actually in the last conversation, but she's the one who said this term of strategic hope, which I thought was super interesting when you're not thinking about hopefulness just as a wish without a plan. You're not thinking of hope as your strategy, even though we're calling it strategic hope. Strategic hope means placing hope in the areas of the business where you're working and feeling that sort of energy and hope that the work that you're putting into it will create the results that you're expecting. And I liked the tone of this because hope it's a little bit soft. It's a little bit, it's different than the word like might or could. But it is applied in the same way that like maybe you're trying to do something that hasn't been achieved before. So you need to place a little bit of hope in the plan, but it needs to come in strategically. What did you think when she said that, Paige?
I mean, and I love the scenario that she talked about. So highly recommend if you haven't had a chance to listen to her episode. But when I evaluated like times where I've had this strategic hope, like coffee and connections to me just automatically came up trying to build that event to have conversations around gender equality and at minor league baseball. I mean, I was putting in a lot of faith that women and men were going to come talk about serious topics at 7 a.m. right? And when like people tell you like you can't do it, and we've heard quotes about the like don't let anyone tell you what you can't do. I think that the hope aspect of it kind of removes the daunting ideas of like goals and benchmarks, and it humanizes it a little bit. So it almost feels more achievable than maybe you let yourself believe it is. So I just love the phrasing of it.
Yeah, and there's a difference in hope and work. I think we all know that. You can't just hope that things work out without putting in the effort to make it happen. So we're not saying change your strategy and just hope it works out. We're saying hope plus work equals success. And I also think like it's a great way to manage with some vulnerability when you can be the leader who talks about like, hey, we haven't done this before. There's a little bit of hope and mixed in with this strategy that it's going to work out and we're going to make it. And like, I'm right here with you working and hoping that the plans we laid out are going to come to fruition. And I just sort of put myself in the place of that, the person who is underneath the leader. And if you have a leader who is confident, who is strategic, but also has the vulnerability to say, hey, we're going to hope these things work out. I think that there's something interesting to that can, humanize and really personalize you in a leadership role that is a little bit different from being very hard-nosed and hardcore.
It's true. And I mean, like sometimes, people will always say it. And like, I say this to you all the time where I'm just like, wow, you have it all together. Like, you just know what you're doing, Emily. And like, end of the day, I know you do, but I'm sure at some points you're like, well, I just kind of threw something at the wall and I hope it stuck. Like, you kind of have that. And that's like kind of any time that a company tries something risky, whether it's a kind of a different type of campaign, different creative, you're going outside of those white lines. That hope kind of drives it, and it is fun. And I think stripping away some of that front as a leader to say like, you know what, this is going to work and we're going to try it and we're going to learn from it. If it doesn't work, I think can really motivate a team to kind of go the extra mile if you get stuck in the, well, it's always been done this way kind of mentality.
So there is another aspect of hope that I want to talk about. And we really defined strategic hope and what that means and how that can be layered into leadership. But there's a different kind of hope as an individual employee that I think we have to be cognizant of. And that is hoping things will change versus having the courage to make them change. And it goes back to the principle we applied to the business in the first place, where we said, you could just hope the plan works out, or you can hope that your plan that you're actively working on with all the tools and resources that you decided upon, make it work. It's two totally different principles. It's the same as an individual. You can hope that your circumstances will change, or you can have hope that they will change because you are actively working on making them change. And I think this is where a lot of individuals can get stuck, because you are in a role where you are a little nervous about, leaving the company or looking for something new, nervous if you're going to get the promotion, wondering about the budget cycle and if you're going to get the raise, and you're sort of hoping that things are going to work out. But I think that there's a moment in time, and I've been in this situation more times than I can count, where I've had to say, Emily, are you hoping that things are going to change, or are you putting in the work to make sure they change, with a little dash of hope that the work that you're putting in will make it all work out? And it's a real gut reality check for me. And I wonder if this is resonating with anyone that I'm talking to now, like listening to this right now. Are you thinking, man, like, I haven't put in the work in a while and I was still hoping that things would change?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like riding a bike a little bit when whether you want to leave a company, change roles, whatever that big change might be. It's always starting. And sometimes you do kind of like sit back and you become more passive versus active. I say if you kind of get into that rhythm, start with those small, like, what can I get done to make it feel like I'm starting to make change, right? Like if it hasn't gotten better at work, or you haven't gotten that promotion, it's like, okay, step 1, update the resume. Step 2, should I start networking again? Step 3, now I'm applying for positions. Step 4, hopefully you're interviewing, and so on. I think sometimes when you get stuck in the hope too much, you like think you need to get everything done all at once, and that can be overwhelming. So then you just like sit in that hope because you just get paralyzed with like, all right, I don't know where to start. So I think if you do find yourself in that situation, maybe give yourself those small achievable benchmarks so it feels like you're getting back to being action oriented, to make that change, because it can be really scary to get back into that rhythm.
Yeah, and that's such a good example. And it made me think about hope as a gut check. Like, are you
Mhm.
leaning too much on hope, and why? Right? Is there something greater that is wrong or that is worrying you? And I was thinking about this related to sponsorship sales. Like, there was every year was a certain month of the year where I woke up every day hoping that someone was going to call or email and say yes to the proposal. And it would
Mhm.
last about, I don't know, 1 to 2 weeks. And then I would say, wow, like, I'm sitting here sick to my stomach, hoping that someone else is going to take action I need to. So whether it was an additional follow-up or just an outreach for new business, like adding more people to that pipeline, my nerves like started to be calm, business
Mhm.
would start to progress. And then that's how I would get to my number, because it wasn't hoping that the deals I put out there were going to come through. It was doing enough activity to make sure that the volume was great enough to have the right closing percentage. So maybe you can also use hope as a gut check. If you're waking up hoping too much, like, maybe there is a time where you need to take some action. And that is really the last part we had to talk about, was taking action and being more direct. So I
Mhm.
think a lot of times we hope that people understand what we're trying to say, right? How many
Yep.
times does that come up in conversation? Oh, I really hope that you're trying to, or that I really hope that you can understand what I'm trying to say. Is there a way that you can be more direct? Who are you protecting by using so many words to beat around the bush?
Yeah, I always find that you get in those like word vomit situations when you kind of get stuck in that too, versus just being like, this is what I need, this is what I want. Um, and sometimes I think we always think people can read our minds too, right? Like you're always like, they're on the same wavelength. Like they also know, and it's like, probably not. Some like there are times where everyone's thinking the same question, but maybe you don't want to voice it. So I definitely like the like be more direct, just say it. Who are you protecting? Like just go after it. So you can get it done, right?
Yeah, it never gets better when you're hoping someone will find out for themselves, recognize
Hmm.
that that behavior is inappropriate, like maybe understand what I said, read between the lines, like all of that hoping based around communication, it never really works out. And
No.
I had so many uncomfortable conversations. They literally happen all the time, and it really doesn't get that much easier. But what gets easier is like moving on with life after you've done it. And
Hmm.
I think everyone feels better when the communication is clear and you're not just like hoping that they understand. And this was reminding me of a situation in the past where there was an employee that was like consistently doing this behavior like over and over and over again. And I'm like, he's going to know. Like, he's going to know that it's not right. Like, I don't have to say anything. He'll figure it out on his own. Happens again. I'm like, oh man, here we go. Like, I have to have the conversation. And that is, the antithesis of hope. Like, you have to take action in that space to ensure that it gets rectified, right? So hope is applied to this space of work in so many different ways, like strategic hope as a vulnerable, connected boss, hope as a trigger to know that more action is needed, hope as a facilitator of conversation. Like it is a word that I think we could be using a little bit more, and really have that gut check with us. Is hope the strategy, or are we hoping the strategy works?
Hmm. And I think it also could help like an attitude change, right? Like it could really build this sense of confidence and getting the job done and getting over that mountain. I think it could really do a lot for a team who maybe is facing something that could be really difficult.
So I've got two quotes to wrap up the episode. The first is, you can either take action or you can hang back and hope for a miracle. Miracles are great, but they are so unpredictable, by Peter Drucker. The second is, never give up, have hope, expect only the best from life, and take action to get it. I think those sort of sum up this conversation perfectly.
It does. We're all taking action to get it done.
All right, let's go. We hope that you have an amazing year crushing your goals. And we know that you can use hope as a strategy, as a tool, as a strategic trigger in knowing when to take action. Let's go.
Yes, love it.